Now, Sports Talk with Broads. Here's Hunter Brody.
Wow. Carson Wentz delivered. Carson Wentz delivered multiple times late down the stretch, and I was informed that he doesn't know how to do that. I was informed that he was not clutch and he was not capable of putting together a drive to win a football game. And not only did he do that, okay, he did that in overtime. Not only did he do that, but he did it to tie the football game. And he also did it in the drive before that where they should have tied the football game and Greg Ward dropped a touchdown. So 3 consecutive drives by Carson Wentz where he delivered and made a play and made plays with an S on it. Not just one, multiple plays. And it was a beautiful sight. And with the lack of weapons, too, it makes it even sweeter. So many guys left the game. The Eagles had 2 available wide receivers once Alshon Jeffrey left. Now, we can get into the management side of that. Like, who thought that would be okay? To go into the game with 3 wide receivers once Nelson Aguilar was ruled out. To go into the game with 3 wide receivers and knowing that Alshon Jeffrey wasn't 100% because he's been having lingering issues all season long. Like, whose idea was that? That needs to be discussed. But for right now, let's enjoy this. Let's enjoy what Carson Wentz did, and we will talk about those beautiful drives. But before we do, I want to let you know about the promo code BROADS that you can use at SeatGeek's checkout page for $20 off of your total purchase. So you can put that $20 towards parking or beer. It's a no-brainer. Use the promo code BROADS today. Now, I won't lie to you. When the score was 17-3 at half, I didn't feel good. I saw uninspired football. I saw bad offense, okay? It wasn't like Carson Wentz was perfect the entire game. No, he wasn't. But in the second half, he was awesome. But when it was 17-3, I didn't feel good at all. I watched the defense get abused by Eli Manning. Darius Slayton working on Ronald Darby. Well, the one touchdown was on 3rd and long. Ronald Darby doesn't want to make a tackle, and it was a really soft tackle attempt, okay? It wasn't even close to being a good tackle attempt. It was just embarrassing, but we shouldn't be surprised because that's been a knock on Ronald Darby for his entire career. The guy just doesn't like to tackle. And then there was a miscommunication on the second touchdown by Darius Slayton with Ronnie McLeod and Ronald Darby. So for the Eagles to get waxed to that degree by one receiver and an old Eli Manning, it was so ridiculous to watch, and it bothered the hell out of me. It was disgusting, really, it was. That first half was disgusting. The boos in that stadium, they were so loud and so harsh. It was blaring out of my television at halftime, and good. I mean, good. Deservingly so. It should have been even worse. And I applaud all those fans that stood out there in the rain to watch that garbage early on. Now, at the end of the day, it ended up being a successful game to go to because of how exciting it was, but for majority of that game, for the first half, I would say, not majority, for half of the game, it was so embarrassing that I couldn't even believe that people stayed. I was offered tickets at around 7 o'clock. Now, I live in South Jersey, so with the travel, around 25 minutes or so to get there, and knowing that it was pouring, it was a little bit of a late notice. I decided to watch on my couch and take my notes and take the game off. But I applaud everyone that stood out there for that, and they got rewarded for it. They absolutely did. But really, what made this more impressive was the fact that Alshon Jeffrey got carted off, okay? Lane Johnson out. So now you have Vaitai in at right tackle. And we remember the last time Vaitai was in at right tackle, it was absolutely not pretty whatsoever. Jalen Mills left at one point. Rasul Douglas ended up going in. Then Rasul Douglas, late in the fourth quarter, had to leave the game and waste one of the Eagles' timeouts. And Sidney Jones replaced him and made a big-time play on 3rd down to stop the Giants. I mean, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. This kid has been a healthy scratch, and he couldn't even get on the field, and he has to come in a clutch moment and make a stop. I had to wash my eyes out and make sure it was really him. But that happened. Miles Sanders left the game, and Boston Scott stepped in, and he was a difference maker. Without him in this game, I don't know where they would have been, because he was a spark plug, and he was making the most of his opportunity. It was tough for him to find time with Jordan Howard in. Not saying this game, I'm talking about in general, why it was hard for him to find time. With Jordan Howard, with Miles Sanders, when Darren Sproles was available, then Jay Ajayi gets signed, and Boston Scott did have some run early in the season, but he didn't splash as much as he did in this game. Well, he had an opportunity, and he sure made the most of it, because he had 10 carries for 59 yards and then had 6 receptions for 69 yards. He had these screen plays. He's juking people left and right. The kid was electric, and he was an absolute spark plug. But he stepped in. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, late in this game, he had to exit. There were no weapons on the field. And the weapons that were out there, they stepped up. How about Perkins? I mean, really? Perkins comes in there and he makes some catches? So for Carson Wentz to deliver on multiple drives with those type of weapons, unreal. Unreal. And I will factor in that it is the New York Giants. They did lose 8 straight games. They're not a good team. They don't have a great defense. But the Eagles still did what they needed to do. They still executed the plays, and they made it happen. So let's talk about this third quarter, because this is when everything started to shift for the Eagles. Williams got a late shot on Carson Wentz, and Carson started playing around with his shoulder a little bit. You can see that he was definitely in discomfort. I didn't like that. That happened in the third quarter. There was also a bad snap by Jason Kelce. It goes over Carson's head. He picks it up. I wanted to see him throw it away, but he doesn't, and he ends up taking the sack. It was a tough spot for him, of course. It was a bad snap, and I'm really not feeling good. But the Eagles score a touchdown because of Boston Scott, and the Eagles crack into the lead. It's now 17-10. Now, Doug wanted to go for 2 on the sidelines. It cut to Doug Peterson. He's putting up the 2. He ended up not doing it. Now, I don't know if Doug is losing his mind or if this was just a trick. If he was just trying to fake out the Giants. I don't know what. I'm hoping someone talks some sense into him. Doug, what the hell are you doing? No. It's pouring raining. The offense has looked terrible. There is no reason to go for 2. Don't give me analytics. If you want to say analytics, then I tell you, start rolling Carson Wentz out of the pocket, because his quarterback rating is so much better when he's on the run. So if you want to go analytics, I'll give you analytics, because he's not using the numbers correctly. But I digress. And that conversation will come up later, because in overtime it was effective. But we need to see more out of that. But like I said, we'll get to that. In the third quarter, the Eagles they don't take the lead. They cut into the lead. 17-10. The fourth quarter was truly special. A great drive by the Birds, sparked by Boston Scott and Perkins. I crack up in my head just thinking about saying that sentence. That's right. Those are the guys. And it almost makes me question the players who were out there, the Alshon Jeffries of the world, those type of players, Nelson Aguilar. Are they not riding and dying with Carson Wentz? Now, that doesn't mean it's Carson Wentz's fault for being a bad leader. That's not what that means. Maybe they think, okay, I won a Super Bowl. Who's Carson Wentz? Look at me. They're all about themselves, and are they problems? Because Perkins and Boston Scott, they're fighting for Carson. They're making plays. Greg Ward, okay? He's being tough. Miles Sanders, these guys are balling. These guys are balling hard out there. Is there something to be said about Nelson Aguilar and Alshon Jeffrey? Maybe there is. And I always thought about that. Oh, Carson's not being a good leader. He doesn't have the locker room. Sometimes it could be the other player's fault. Like, those people can just be, and excuse my French here, asses, right? I mean, they could just be asses. I was going to say something way worse than that, but I decided not to. So anyway, these guys are balling. Doug Peterson tries to challenge a defensive pass interference. I don't know what he saw. I know the one replay showed maybe something where J.J. Arcega-Whiteside had both hands on him, but the ball got tipped. I don't know what Doug Peterson was trying to do, but he ended up wasting a timeout. If that was his goal, then he sure did it. A couple questionable calls out of Doug Peterson in this game. But ultimately, he delivered when he put together some fantastic drives. But I digress. In that sequence, Greg Ward drops a pass that touches both of his hands that would have tied the game. It was in the end zone. The defender was in the vicinity, but he didn't touch it. He didn't get a hand on the ball. He didn't touch Greg Ward. This ball needs to be caught. I don't care that it's raining. I don't care that the ball might have been slippery. I don't care. I don't care that he's a practice squad player. That ball needs to be caught. Carson Wentz delivered the football in the fourth quarter to tie the game, and it was dropped. And I even tweeted this. Lather, rinse, repeat. I mean, that's just what it has been all season long. To make it even worse, what ended up happening was Jake Elliott had a field goal attempt, and he missed it. So my man ends up getting his new contract, and he misses a couple field goals ever since that contract. Hopefully that's not getting into his head psychologically, but he missed a big-time field goal, and just when it looked like the Eagles were going to get momentum, something like that totally put them 3,000 feet backwards. But Carson did not let that stop him. When the Eagles needed it in regulation, he absolutely delivered. An 84-yard drive. There was a 4th and 1 in there. What do you think? A QB sneak? Oh, yes, sir. Now, there was a QB sneak earlier in this game where he tried to reach out. It was a fumble. They didn't get it, of course, because it was a fumble, and they ended up recovering it. The Giants did. It didn't matter anyway. It was a turnover on downs because he didn't get the first down. My point is, it was effective late. You don't normally see it not be effective with this football team. It's almost as if every team knows it's coming, but they can't stop it. So there was a 4th and 1 involved. There was a J.J. Arcega-Whiteside catch over the shoulder, which I'm going to be honest with you. I even tweeted one of my buddies during the fourth quarter. I haven't heard J.J. Arcega-Whiteside's name one damn time. Not once. Not once. And with the lack of weapons, it's saying a lot if you are not hearing this kid's name. I hate to say he is a bust, but I've seen nothing out of him that really impresses me. But he makes that one catch, of course, 2 minutes after I sent that text to my buddy, and it was really impressive. But I'm still really underwhelmed with J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. In a game like this, against the Giants, against a defense like this, there's defenders out there that shouldn't even be in the league that are, covering him? Like, he can't get open, he can't get any separation. Baker gets abused every single week, okay? He really does. I mean, this guy gets ripped apart and gets torched week after week after week after week. And these receivers can't get by him, and Baker makes some plays on the ball. It's mind-blowing. It really is. I can't believe it. I can't even comprehend that. But after J.J. Arcega-Whiteside makes that really nice catch, Greg Ward fights for some yards and he gets down by the goal line. And after a couple not-so-great plays, Carson Wentz with a dot to Zach Ertz in the end zone. I mean, this thing was a missile. It was a missile right to Ertz, and the Eagles tie the football game. When the Eagles got the ball to start overtime, I knew. I knew because their offense was flowing. The Giants were on their heels. The way they looked, the way the Eagles looked, there was confidence in their offense. There was rhythm. There was flow. They knew it. They knew it. They believed. They believed in Carson. Those receivers, okay? Greg Ward, and I talk about Boston Scott and Perkins. They looked at Carson Wentz in that huddle and said, yup, we're doing this. Absolutely, we are going to do this. Zach Ertz, same thing. Dallas Goedert, same thing. We're going to do this. And I wrote down play by play what happened in that overtime because it really was great. It starts with a throw to Sanders down the sideline, 11-yard gain. Boston Scott on a quick little toss. How about a 25-yard game? Wentz rolls out of the pocket, and I mentioned how we will discuss this. He rolls out of the pocket. It looks so smooth. It looks so great. It's a 14-yard gain to Perkins. And I'm telling you, when Carson Wentz runs out of the pocket and the play is designed for him to go to his right side, he's a stud. The kid is a serious weapon. Now, I don't understand why Doug Peterson doesn't see this. I don't understand why it's so limited in the playbook. It's obvious. Now, I know you can't make a play call where that's happening every single play. That will get shut down, but I don't see it enough for my liking. With the success rate of it, it should be implicated in the game plan way more than it really is. So, it's just something that has to be noticed by this coaching staff. So after that, there was a short pitch to Miles Sanders, very similar to the Boston Scott play. I feel like they tried to trick the Giants. It did not work. There was 0 gain on the play. This was what I thought was really impressive, and it's such a little play, but Wentz threw an 8-yard cannon to Greg Ward. And this almost blew Greg Ward backwards by 10 yards. I mean, this thing was a rocket. Hit him right in the chest. But it comes down to Carson Wentz. And that is him being confident. That is him being the guy. That is him knowing and trusting his ability. That throw we haven't seen all season long. That throw was a 2017 Carson Wentz throw. And I know that sounds ridiculous. It's an 8-yard reception. But the way it was delivered, the cannon, and just the confidence, that's what it comes down to. It goes back to his confidence. He has been all over the place mentally. He has looked lost. There's no denying it. But what we witnessed in the back half of this football game was a confident Carson with people around him and a supporting cast that looked in his eyes and said, I believe in you, Carson. I don't know if we have that in the locker room as a whole with some of these guys. I don't know if Nelson Aguilar is that. I don't know if Alshon Jeffrey is that, Matt Collins, Jordan Matthews, those type of players who are no longer here, they didn't have that. Now, some of it goes with the fact that these players are trying to make the most of their opportunities, like I mentioned with Boston Scott and Perkins, who have been grinding and trying to finally get a taste of the NFL. So when they get their chance, they want to make the most of it. I get that, but it doesn't mean they can't make the most of their opportunity and believe in Carson Wentz, and I think they did that. And same with Greg Ward. There's something to be said about that. There really is. It can't go unnoticed. 3rd and 2. Sanders breaks a tackle. He gets a big-time cut there and finds a way to get a first down. Boston Scott up the middle, tough run, and it leads to an Ertz touchdown. A great play by Carson Wentz. A nice throw, and the rest is history. It's funny because we've seen this team really come together after a Giants win, right after a win over the Giants, I should say, in clutch moments. All right? So we're gonna have to see if this team can build off this emotionally. We haven't seen this team play with that type of swag, if you will, offensively. And maybe not swag is the right word, but they haven't played with that type of intensity and with that type of offense. It looked like they were having fun. It looked like they all trusted each other. That has not been a thing. Now, what scares me is this injury thing to the offensive line. If Vaitai has to play a full game with Lane Johnson out, that can be scary. I don't know what the deal is with J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. Not that he was that much of an impact player, but he's just a body at this point because the Eagles are running out of people. What's Boston Scott's identity going to be moving forward? Right? I mean, there's so many things to discuss when it comes to injuries and what went down. Jalen Mills, Rasul Douglas. Is Sidney Jones going to have to play, right? I mean, there really are so many questions to be asked moving forward. But the Eagles tie the Dallas Cowboys at the top of the NFC East at 6-7. I can't believe it. Looking at Carson Wentz's day, 325 yards, 2 touchdowns, 97.5 passer rating. 50 passes, though. That's a lot. Zach Ertz had a nice day, 91 yards, 9 receptions. And what an easy bet. One of my prop bets for this game was one of them was Carson Wentz, but Zach Ertz over 4.5 catches, no brainer. That was a lock. I had Carson Wentz over 239.5 passing yards. That was another lock. Now, I did miss on the Miles Sanders bet. I went for over 65.5 yards. That wasn't even close. I didn't feel good about that when I was taking a shot at it. So 2 of 3 on the day isn't terrible. The Eagles were 3 of 4 in the red zone. So when they were getting in the red zone, they were delivering and cashing in on points, which is definitely very nice to see. Will this give the team life? That's the major question. Because it was so emotional, maybe it does. If this was a game where the Eagles just blew out the Giants and just dominated, but it wasn't a very emotional game, it was as if the second half the Eagles were just going through the motion and punting the ball away because they were up so much, I don't know if it would have the same effect. But because it was the way that it was, that they came together, they rallied together, they looked at each other in the huddle and said, yes, yes, yes. Although I would say maybe not, because the way that there was a faster pace to the offense, they weren't in the huddle as much. They were getting to the line of scrimmage. They were moving. There was pace to their offense. Maybe Doug Peterson should take some notes and watch some film, watch some of his own film and figure this out, all right? Because we've been screaming for that as well. I think there's a possibility to gain something because of how it played out. Because of coming into the fourth quarter, putting together monstrous drives, delivering, coming back, showing fight, rallying as one unit. I barely even mentioned the defense in that second half. They did their job against Eli Manning. They did their job in that second half. They shut them down. They forced the Giants to punt. You saw the receivers actually pressing at the line of scrimmage at some point. I was a little shocked. You also saw some sticks defense as well, but guess what? It worked. Now, talking about Eli Manning, I don't think it was as bad as I expected it to be honest with you. Now, I'm not going to tell you it was anything great. He did have those nice 2 touchdown passes, and he missed some wide open stuff as well. So did Carson Wentz early on, but I didn't think it was as bad as maybe I expected it to be out of Eli Manning. Like, it could have been worse. There were some plays that I didn't like out of Carson so early on, but he made up for it with what he did in that second half. So let me know what you think down below. Thank you so much for watching. Hit that thumbs up button, subscribe. I will see you next time.